Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports as Ordered. Shimmy, shimmy, yah. Shimmy, shimmy, yay. Give Jordan Love the ball so I can take it away. Welcome back.
Yeah, as
I
soon
am
as
too
you start, I
fine.
was like, I'm gonna laugh.
That is Mr. Logical.
You're
And tonight, we got picks. And we got picks. And we got more picks. We're going to talk a little NBA. You know, what do we think about the season so far? Bradley Beal finally played last night. Armageddon is coming.
I guess they won't go 37 and 45.
But of course, it is that time of show. So that means that get it off my chest is now.
Yo, NBA straight up. Let's keep it 100. I'm gonna keep it a whole beam. I'm gonna keep it straight. If the player you're highlighting was drafted during Obama's first administration, it is time to go over the fact that that dude is a championship contender. It's it. Steph Curry, even guys older than that, James Harden, all these guys being all on the Clippers. Stop it. You need to start highlighting these young guys. Like right now, you got Milwaukee playing against Indiana, and then there's another game after this, I think, in Mexico City with Orlando. Start highlighting these young guys. Give these young guys the same time slots you would give these old teams, because you need somebody to carry the torch. You need someone to get highlighted. So either there's Anthony Edwards, it's Paolo down in Orlando, or you go to Houston. Like, listen, one of you young guys, just we're gonna sell your swag to the public. I saw a commercial with SGA with the Skims, the tank tops or whatever, the Kim Kardashian NBA deal. You got to start doing that, because this conversation about these teams, full of these guys being championship contenders, is not realistic. Basketball is a young man's game. Yeah, you need to be smart, but at a certain point, that's it. It's like your likelihood of you winning championships with a AD and LeBron and the rest of the bandits on the Lakers is unlikely. And I love LeBron. I thought they should have traded AD 2.5 years ago. I'm on record with that, because I thought they would have pieces, because I figured LeBron was going to play 2 more years consistently, and AD wasn't. So if I could trade AD and they probably could have made a move to get AD to Chicago. They might have gotten Kobe White, Levine, and maybe they could have got Caruso back. I don't know. However desperate Chicago was, but you got to make these other transitions easier for these other players to be popular, because you're stymieing them. You're putting them behind these guys who play out west. They play late. So there's no games on. There's no game that you're highlighting. There's no marquee game you're highlighting. Yeah, you're highlighting the Knicks, but people kind of feel like the Knicks are more of a niche team to like. Like, you can't be from outside of the Knicks fan base and then start rooting for the Knicks. They got their own fan base. You got to get these other guys. You got to get LaMelo on TV. You got to get Brandon Miller on TV. These guys that get drafted top overall, you got to put them on TV until their team gets good, because I'm sick of the conversation every single day being about the 4-4 Clippers or the 3-5 Lakers every single day, when you have really good teams out there. You have other good teams out west. Start highlighting your young players and your actual good teams versus these guys who carried your torch for 8 or 9 years. That run that Golden State had with the 6 finals in 8 years, and the 73 wins, and the battles they had back and forth with Cleveland, that carried your league for a while. The Miami Heatles for that 4-year stretch, and their battles with Boston, and their battles with the battle they had with Dallas, and the Dallas battle that they had with the Lakers. All of that was a good stretch. Right now, it is fading, because you guys aren't highlighting the next stretch, the next battle. Like, you got to manufacture. You can't rely on what was You got to look at what's going to be. So start highlighting these guys. I want to see more of these guys on TV. I want to see more of these guys leading the talk show. I want questions like, can Chet Holmgren be Defensive Player of the Year? Even if that can't be the case, I want the NBA to start sending out memos to all of these channels so like this information gets out there so you can really spread the brand of the league. I'm sick of literally watching people thinking James Harden's going to be the missing piece to a championship team that he's never been a missing piece to. Like, who are we fooling? Stop pushing in my pocket and tell me it's raining. Like, give me some other guys out there that can be entertaining. Give me some of these other guys that, oh, you can't relate to millennials or whatever. These guys are the young guys that are going to carry your league. Trae Young should be on TV all the time. He's cocky. He's good. Put him out there on TV as a good teammate, because what happens is when they're not highlighted, it makes them easy to trade. Like, a lot of these teams just trade their players because they don't feel like they get the media buzz. Like, you have a good core of players, put them together, put them out there, and let them be your next wave of players. LeBron is still going to draw attention because he's LeBron. James Harden's still going to draw attention. Russ still going to draw attention. Steph's still going to draw attention. They have basketball deals. They're movie production companies. They're on talk shows. They're going to draw attention. Get these other guys in there and show really good basketball as well as the entertainment piece. So that's my get off my chest. Just, I'm sick of seeing the same teams having the same conversation year after year, because it's going to happen in a week. Does LeBron need more help? Can the Clippers win it all? No and no. Can Phoenix win it all? No, they can't. Because they're old. I'm an old dude. I can fight one 20-something-year-old at a bar. Maybe put hands on them. Maybe two. I can't fight 3 or 4 of them. It's too much time, too much energy. I ain't got it. You just don't have it. No matter how strong you are, eventually you're going to run out of gas. And I run out of gas with this NBA entertainment model. Like, give me somebody else. Put some other entertainment teams out there, some other guys out there, instead of suspending them every time they act up a little bit. Shout out to John Morant.
Yo, remember when Trae Young went to Madison Square Garden in the playoffs and was like, you just mad because I'm styling on you.
And he was
You
doing
might
this.
got better gear, but you ain't styling on me. Plus the cowl is on me. You
He
know,
should have got a commercial off that.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't understand. So this is something that I don't understand before I get to my get it off my chest. This is something that I don't understand. Atlanta's not a small city. So, like, why is it that in sports, Atlanta doesn't get attention? Or why doesn't Atlanta get more attention, I guess I should say? Like the Falcons, the Hawks, the MLS team won the title, a few years ago. But nobody talks about Atlanta.
Because every sports show talks about the same thing all the time. Like, I watch a lot of these shows, and for a while I stopped watching them because it was like, I'm literally hearing Cowboys, LeBron, Lakers, AD, Dak, Jerry Jones, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick,
Knicks.
Now, that's the thing. The sports shows don't talk about the Knicks. The Knicks fans talk about the Knicks, which is fine. But like, as far as the sports pundits, not a lot of conversation. It's like I said, it's just so redundant and just unimaginative. Yo, Giannis is out here playing tic-tac-toe with these dudes. I think he got like 60 points or something. He's getting close to 60.
That's hilarious. I'm gonna look it up real quick. But yeah, so we got Thursday night football going on. Carolina with a 10-6 lead on Chicago, getting close to halftime. We talked about Louisville the other day. Can they get to the ACC championship game? They're up 14-0 early third against UVA. And just to let Mr. Logical know what's going on in these streets, Giannis has 54 points and 11 rebounds, 19 of 24 from the floor. And this is the shocker, 16 of 18 from the free throw line.
Yo, he's literally a man amongst boys. I'm watching it right now. He's getting the ball in the restricted area and just turning around and dropping the ball in.
Looking like Zion in high school.
Looking like George Gervin. just turn around and just finger rolling the ball in.
But yeah, get it off my chest. Simple and to the point. So we all know that I love my college football. We all know that Veterans Day is here, and you know that we love you, America. But America, you always make me question you. I don't understand your methods. I don't understand your thought process. So we get a habit of supporting antiquated views. Things that held true 20 years ago may not hold true today. So I look at James Madison, for example, undefeated, ineligible for the Sun Belt championship game, even though this is the best part, even though they have a victory this season over the team that everybody said was the favorite and that everybody's still picking to win the Sun Belt. They beat that team, Troy. Now, they joined FBS last year, and they could have played in the Sun Belt championship game last year. They were so good. And they didn't get allowed. They weren't allowed to. They didn't get to go to a bowl game. They're ineligible for a bowl this year. So they're submitting waivers trying to get a bowl berth. This is the problem. We do this thing where we say, I had to pay student loans. I owed 40 grand with all kinds of interest that never went away. So you must too. You know, I got picked on in school, so you must get picked on too. And it's your rite of passage to be tough or something. But then these kids are out here harming themselves because they got bullied. You know, so what is the problem with the undefeated team playing in a bowl game? We already had it to where teams like UCF went undefeated and didn't get a chance to play in the playoff. Now we're just telling a team they can't even play in a bowl game. We talked about this back in March Madness when Bellarmine won their conference and was ineligible for the tournament. Merrimack won the Northeast Conference, and Fairleigh Dickinson, T-Net, New Jersey, stand up, made the tournament and beat Purdue. They beat Purdue. Like, I don't know if Merrimack would have beat Purdue, but Merrimack won the conference tournament. So what are we doing? Why are we punishing kids for the decisions of a university? James Madison decided that they were willing and able to move up to FBS. So far, the move has paid off. Like, think about it. Like, after Rocky fought Apollo Creed and took the champ to the wire, 15 rounds and everything, we didn't say, Rocky, get to the back of the line. We wanted to see Rocky too, and we wanted Rocky to win the title.
Hey.
Why can't James Madison play for the Sun Belt title? Why can't they play in a bowl game? Because some old-ass fart said so. That's it. Like, some dude just said so. The man said so.
Because the man said so, and no one argues against it.
Nobody argues against the man, you know. And since we talking about college football, we might as well get into this weekend because we got some big, monstrous games that are going to define this playoff race. We gave you the crazy scenario the other day. So, of course, we're going to start this conversation with the Michigan Wolverines traveling to Happy Valley. And Penn State blew my mind. Every year, they have a whiteout game at night. And every year I say I'm going to go to one, even though I despise Penn State, but I'm going to go. I want to be in that environment. I got to see it. It is, as much as I don't like Penn State. The only reason I don't like Penn State is because they be beating the crap out of Maryland all the time. So, you know, it's all like that. But anyway.
Get the breaks off of Maryland.
But they blew my mind this weekend against Michigan. They're having a stripe out.
What's a stripe? They're all going to wear pinstripes?
No, the crowd is just going to be blue, white, blue, white, blue, white, blue, white. You know, I guess it sounds more like checkerboard than it does stripe. But you know,
you got to make sure everybody participates.
Yeah, but happy. So I've been struggling all week long. I want to pick Penn State to win this game. I just can't get there.
Well, I mean, Michigan tends to beat teams up front, offensively and defensively. They run the ball well. and they have a playmaker with experience at quarterback. Having all that in a college football game, you tend to not get upset because you have all the foundational pieces. USC, we noticed they had like a leaky defense. So you can have this ultra dynamic head coach and ultra dynamic potential first overall pick quarterback, but your defense is bad. Michigan doesn't have those holes. So you need all of the things that operate pretty consistently, your offensive line, your run game, your defensive line, you stopping the run. Those are pretty simple attributes of your game that travel, whether you're on the road, in the snow, when it's hot, when it's cold, when it's windy. That works. Michigan does it well. Penn State doesn't have the experience at the quarterback position to just neutralize that. So Michigan's going to win. I don't want to say it'd be easy, but even with all the athletes and the talent that Penn State does have, Michigan just has the athletes, the scheme, and the experience. Those three things put together is going to lead to it being a little bit more. Now, for your scenario, it'd be great to see if we can have the 3-1 loss.
But I don't want to pick it just because I want the scenario to happen.
But realistically,
you know what I mean?
if you just think about how like the dynamics of the game, because I think that same dynamic is going to help them before when we talk about the Ohio State game. I think that's going to be the thing that sets them apart, is that they have the quarterback that can make the plays and that's been there in these tough situations. It's tough to come into these environments, even on the road. But he plays in Ann Arbor. He plays in front of 107,000 people who expect him to be successful every single week, and the pressure on him, and people probably talking to him in the soda shops and the coffee shops and the barber shops all week long. Like, hey, JJ, throw for 300 yards this week, yada, 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 like the whole varsity blues aspects of his existence. So I don't think going on the road is going to overwhelm him because what they do well travels.
All right, you ready for these stats?
Let's hear it.
This season, J.J. McCarthy, Heisman Trophy candidate, has had 10 dropbacks in the fourth quarter. He went back to pass 10 times in the fourth quarter this whole season.
Because they've been up and he's been running the ball.
Michigan has not had a defensive goal to go situation this season. All the touchdowns that they've given up is from like 40 yards out, Here's one. And this stat is from Chris Vanini of the Until Saturday podcast. This season, in the third quarter, Michigan has outscored their opponents 114-0. Penn State has outscored their opponents 97-0. So neither team has given up a third quarter. I got to take this jersey off. You see all this? I'm sweating like a pig up in here. But so then Penn State is first in yards given up per game. So they stop everybody. Michigan is sixth. So this game is going to look a lot, in my mind, is going to look a lot like the Ravens and the Browns on Sunday. This is going to be a 1st to 12 special. Remember that 9-6 Alabama LSU game? We might see something.
That was the worst. And they gave us the rematch, and then Alabama tossed them.
So the key to this game, can J.J. McCarthy get Roman Wilson involved? That's the question, because he's Michigan's best receiver. And taking it back to the Ohio State game a few weeks ago, the difference in that game was that Ohio State had Marvin Harrison Jr. Michigan doesn't have a receiver like that.
True.
So can he create the separation to make the plays that Marvin Harrison made against Michigan? Caleb King, I came into the season thinking that he was going to be the next great Penn State defensive back, following in Joey Porter Jr.'s footsteps from last year. It hasn't quite worked out that way. Not that he's played bad, but it just doesn't look how I expected it to look. So who's going to win that matchup between Caleb King and Roman Wilson? And don't forget, Penn State they forced that fumble against Ohio State in the second quarter, ran it back 56 yards, and then it got taken off the board because of a penalty. And that's a whole different ball game. So all this narrative about how James Franklin can't beat the big boys, it's kind of true.
It's kind of
But
true.
you know, but you know, I was
It's true. Like, and that's the thing. Like, a lot of these college coaches, a lot of them are just, they are there to keep your program highly relevant. They'll never put you in a situation where your 100,000 seat stadium is barely getting 30,000 people. They're just not going to be. They're not going to be Harbaugh. They're not going to be Ryan Day. They're not going to be Urban Meyer. They're not going to be Jim Tressel. They're not going to be these guys. These, like Les Miles. He had a nice little run, but they're like, you know what? You're not. I don't know why they got rid of him. Come to think of it, like, I'm pretty sure there's probably a lot of personality things. But what Nick Saban, what Kirby Smart, and some of these guys are doing, you're not going to get. You're going to get a lot of guys who are coaching like Mark Richt. Some years you might be 8-4. Some years you might be 9-3. Maybe one year you pop off a 10-2 or 11-1 season and it's hot. But it's hard with the interchanging pieces. Franklin is Mr. Consistent. He's going to give you a good product every single year. Limited scandals because there's always going to be something. But
yeah,
that's what you're going to get. He won't be able to be the big guy. He won't get you over the hump.
He was supposed to be Maryland's coach, but they didn't want to get rid of the fridge. So he's 12-24 against the top 25, but 3-16 against top 10 teams. And Josh Pate from Late Kick Live, you know, shout out to my favorite podcast, you know, he gave us the LeBron stat.
Here we go. Here we go.
So he's 3-16 against top 10 teams, but he was only favored in 5 of them.
So those 19 games, he's favored in 5.
Yeah, and he's covered
3 to 5.
Yeah, and he's covered the majority of them. You know, covered the spread in the majority of them. So that's your LeBron stat. He made it to the finals, but he ran into an all-time team. You know, so you know that's what that is.
Yeah, but we're not even talking about LeBron.
Nope,
You bring it up.
Nope,
yeah, killing me with that.
Nope.
I mean, I feel you. I get it. You know, but like I said, that's what you present when you recognize that like he's going to be a very, very above average coach. He's going to be on the
games
cusp.
at Vanderbilt. You know, so like that tells you the quality of coach that James Franklin is.
You win 8 games at Vanderbilt 4 out of 5 years. That's how you know a guy's a quality
Nobody can do that. Bill Belichick can't do that.
Exactly. So what happens is you do what every negotiation ploy, you strike while the iron's hot. My leverage is I just won 8 games at Vanderbilt. Let me get this other job. And now I have the resources to be, one of these top competitors. Ryan Day just basically inherited like just the wave with Tressel to Urban Meyer and then Luke Fickell. Like it was like just that wave of recruits, 25-star recruits out of the Big Ten, or Ohio State gets 8 to 10 of them.
Yeah.
If you keep that wave going, your program could look highly successful.
Well, Ryan Day better, all I got to say about him is that he better beat Michigan this year, regardless of what happens on Saturday in Penn State, Michigan. He better beat Michigan this year. So I got Michigan winning. I want to pick Penn State, but I just can't get there. But while we're here, I guess I might as well talk about upset alert because I forgot to do that. So upset alert, now granted, I know a lot of these aren't top 25 games and all that kind of stuff like that, but we still got a favorite and an underdog. So upset alert, Rutgers going to Kinnick to play Iowa. Pop quiz.
Let's hear it.
What's the over-under in that game?
20.5.
No, man, it ain't that. It'll never be that low.
Over-under for Rutgers and Iowa?
Yeah, it ain't gonna never be that low. I've never seen anything lower than 27.
20. We'll go 27.5.
28.5.
Wow, this is not that much different. It's 1 touchdown.
And Iowa's only favored by 1.
Wait, Iowa's favorite and the over-under is, so that 28. Means Iowa has to get to 15 points.
Hey, I don't make the rules, okay?
Disrespecting my boys from Jersey. I don't like that at all.
So BYU Lavelle Edwards Stadium hosting Iowa State. Iowa State still has a chance to get to the Big 12 championship game. Obviously they need some help, but they're within the race. I think they're going to be on upset alert. I think they get out of there with a win, but don't forget BYU went into Arkansas SEC Stadium and won this year. Colorado. I know a lot of y'all don't believe me, but I think they got a chance to beat Arizona. Arizona coming off of these 4 straight weeks against ranked opponents. They won. They're in the Pac-12 title race. If USC beats Oregon this weekend, it gets real funky, but give me Colorado to keep it close. I think I saw it at 9.5, so I can see Colorado losing by, say 6. I'll say 6. But for the actual upsets that I'm picking, if I gotta preface this with an if Luther Burden plays, I'm taking Missouri over Tennessee. If not, then just roll with Tennessee. Boston College over Virginia Tech. Auburn over Arkansas. And then San Jose State over Fresno State. So those are my upsets for this week. But now while we're at it, Mr. Logical, is there any way on God's green earth that Lane Kiffin takes the Rebels between the hedges and walks out of Athens, Georgia with a win?
I think so. I think because I like the way Ole Miss throws the ball around. I like the swagger that he coaches with. And I think what Missouri gave Georgia last week, because Carson Beck, I think he's a serviceable quarterback. His first year starting. I mean, he was behind Stetson Bennett, who was about 24, 25 when the season started last year. So I like what Georgia was doing. I showed you the meme.
Yeah.
Kirby Smart's record November 2020 was like 48-14, and now it's 90-15. So what he's done in Georgia the last few years, but I can see a situation where Ole Miss, because if Missouri doesn't turn that ball over when they're down 6, and they march down the field and get a touchdown, it wasn't an impossibility for them to get a touchdown on that drive.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the quarterback, what he was seeing, there was a tight end that was leaking behind that defensive tackle. And I think he was trying to get it up and over. And I can't remember if he got hit or if he just didn't put enough arm into it. But what I saw, he was someone was blocking, leaked out. He was trying to dump it over the top of the defensive tackle. When he got the interception, they ran it down to the 3, but at the penalty and brought it back nearly like midfield or like the 45 or whatever. And then Georgia ended up getting the field goal, but I put him up 9. So I can see Ole Miss potentially causing danger. But if Georgia just goes back to smash mouth football and using the power they have up front and the size they have up front, I don't think, because Lane Kiffin he's gonna gamble. I can foresee a fake punt. I can foresee an early flea flicker, or some kind of like reverse play, just something that's out of the norm, because that's what coaches tend to do when they're a bit of a gunslinger and they're playing against a team that is markedly better than them, and you have like a nothing to lose kind of attitude. And I think Lane Kiffin kind of embodies that. So I can see him pulling something tricky, fake field goal, fake punt, something along those lines, and try to get an edge. But ultimately, I think Georgia still pulls it out, especially at home. When we talked about the record, 90-15, and it's 105 games coaching a team. It's unlikely that you're going to trick them into losing.
Pop quiz.
Let's hear it.
So we know that the last time Georgia lost a game was the SEC title game a couple of years ago against Alabama. When was the last time, or I ain't going to say when, okay, who was the last team to win at Georgia?
Tennessee.
Final answer?
Final answer.
South Carolina. The year was 2019. Georgia is a 17-point favorite, lost by 3 to the Gamecocks. But anyway, so yeah. So I was looking at this game. I was trying to find the pass for Ole Miss to win. You know how I am. I always say Lane Kiffin talks too much. But I
Absolutely.
but I like this Lane Kiffin I'm seeing because going into Alabama, it was the Taylor Swift song. The castle was crumbling and all that. Last week against A&M, he was talking about how Jimbo Fisher was a great coach, and he had A&M's defense was so great. This week, he actually said that like we're playing with house money. So what I expect is a lot of fourth down attempts that
Yep.
Georgia will probably stop.
Yep.
And Ole Miss is probably going to lose this game by 17 or so. But Ole Miss has they have things going for them. They average 3.4 sacks per game. So if they can get some pressure on Carson Beck, last week against Missouri was the first time that I saw him rattled, I guess is the right word.
Yeah.
Like this is his first year, like you mentioned, but he's been great all year, but last week was the first time, not that he played bad, but last week didn't look like the rest of the season. It was just like, hey, okay, like he's a little confused, maybe he's off kilter, if you will, and good news for Georgia is that there's word on the street that Brock Bowers might be coming back for this game. So we'll see if that's true or not. So I think that Ole Miss plays too fast. They score too quickly. So even if they get points against Georgia, they're not going to keep Georgia off the field long enough to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So even if they're successful, it can still bite them. Also, Trey
Like
Pettis.
old school Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
That
Trey
run
Pettis.
against Buffalo Bills, yeah.
Trey Pettis. I'm no genius, but you probably don't want to lose an offensive lineman before you play Georgia. So those of you that don't know Trey Pettis, he was the one that got punched in the nuts last week, by the Texas A&M player. He broke a bone in his foot during practice this week. So he's going to be out. So that spells trouble for Ole Miss. Ole Miss, though, what they have going for them as well, close games. Remember the Minnesota Vikings last year? Ole Miss is 4-0 in one-score games this year. So if it's a tight game, they won't crack, So if they can keep tight, they're in there. But the problem is Missouri had success getting to the perimeter against Georgia, running to the outside, sweeps and all that kind of stuff. But Ole Miss is more of a power run up the middle in your face kind of offense. Marshawn Lynch, what was it? Put the ball in his face or whatever it was.
Yeah. Over and over and over and over and over.
That's not gonna get it done against Georgia. Georgia's
the
too
back
good for
shoulder
that.
throw, because they play aggressive like press coverage.
Yeah.
Missouri was killing them on those 4th and 10, 4th and 7, 3rd and long with the back shoulders. Like they just kept pressing
And
them.
I don't know if
They're like,
Jackson
all right, we'll
Dart,
just press it hard up the field and just throw back shoulder. They threw a lot
and I don't
of
know
back
if
shoulder
Jackson Dart can hit that, but he does have my former UTSA wide receiver Zachariah Franklin. So maybe we can get something going on over there. But yeah, I got Georgia winning this game. I saw the spread 10.5. I think Georgia covers. But we'll see. I mean, obviously, if Tennessee can get the win in Como earlier in the day, they're going to have eyes on that game, because if Ole Miss can win that game and Tennessee wins, then next week Tennessee plays Georgia at home with a chance to take over the lead in the SEC East. So there you go. So then we're gonna go out to the West Coast late night with it. I saw Oregon favored by as much as 16.5 over Trojangelis. Now, last time we saw Caleb Williams, he was crying and he needed his dog.
Yeah, was he really crying with his mom in the stands?
Yeah.
In a November football game?
Yeah.
I understand the passion, but it's like, just go in a tunnel.
But all
go
is not
in a
lost.
tunnel.
All is not lost, USC. All you got to do is go into Autzen Stadium and win, and you put yourself right in the driver's seat for the Pac-12 championship game. So, so Mr. Logical, short and simple. They fired Alex Grinch. So we'll see what their defense looks like. Can USC do it?
If they have a scheme that they felt like he should have been running and he wasn't running it, and that's why they fired him, then yeah, maybe it'll be better. But if they kept whoever else was also on his defensive staff and they're gonna run the same scheme, then they're gonna get the same results. Like if they had a guy that was like, listen, I'm definitely not gonna run that cover 4 or cover 3 or whatever they were running. I'm just gonna go man to man or cover 2 or whatever you're gonna do, and it's gonna be definitively different than the guy they just fired. Then yeah, it might be a case because you already have the athletes because you're a California basketball team. You have the athletes. You should have been able to do better on defense than you were. So if that guy who was the defensive coordinator all off season and this entire season couldn't figure it out, the guy that's already in the building that you put in position to call those plays won't figure it out either. So it's going to be another shootout to where USC is probably going to lose by maybe 16 and a half, might be a stretch, but I could see them losing 48-35.
I'm scared that
Caleb Williams just throws just because he's a talented quarterback. He's just going to make the throws that you need, but I don't see how there's another guy in the building that can construct that defense any better than the guy that was doing it all off season.
I'm scared that this may resemble the Notre Dame game. Because, Oregon, first in the nation in yards per carry.
Offensive efficiency.
Keep Caleb Williams off the field. And, why would that be a concern? Because USC is 115th in yards per carry given up. So, that's that. USC can run the ball. So, but Oregon isn't a Washington type of offense. They put up points, but they don't do it in that quick strike way that Washington does. So that can buy USC some time if they bend but don't break, win in the red zone, hold Oregon to field goals.
They put up a lot of points quickly against Colorado. I mean, they put up 35 points in the first half. You only get 30 minutes. They didn't have the ball the whole 30 minutes.
Well, so
yeah. You could do that if you can win the battle up front because your defense is in a position. Which
but I don't think that they're going to win.
They didn't have the size up front.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Put guys on the back end out of position, or they couldn't. They had to make plays at a different level. Well, if you are never in position, if I call an inside zone run and the linebacker is always just flowing out of the middle of the field, and my running back is running straight downhill, and I'm getting 14 yards a pop, I'm going to score pretty quick.
You ready for this one? So I told you the other day, Dylan Johnson, the running back for Washington, 4 years in college football, never ran for 100 yards.
Correct.
Ran for 250 last week.
Against USC.
He had 199 yards before contact. So, unless USC just scraps
that's the whole not going to change. That's not going to change from one Saturday to the other Saturday.
If they fired Grinch today and they played Oregon in 2 weeks, then maybe I could be like, hey, they got a couple of games to tune it up, and but not in a week. So, with that being said, though, if USC can pull this win off, obviously that causes chaos, knocks Oregon out of the college football playoff contention. But not only that, what about that Pac-12 championship game? Because Utah is taking a trip to Seattle to play against the Huskies. Utah already has 2 Pac-12 losses. They lost to Oregon and they lost to Oregon State.
That's tough. That's tough. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the state of Oregon right now.
Well, this is the thing. If Utah can beat Washington, they got 2 losses in conference. If USC beats Oregon, they both have 2 losses in conference. Oregon State has 2 losses in conference. Arizona has 2 losses in conference. The Pac-12 is in business, baby.
The entertainment business.
But it would be that same thing that we always talk about. Is the Pac-12 going to eat itself? That's what we have the potential for this weekend. Now, I don't think Utah has the firepower to beat Washington.
I think Washington, this is their year. You can call it team of destiny. Ooh, that looked bad.
Yeah, I picked them for the playoff, to start the season. I had them in the playoff, so we'll see. I did
You
have
got
them
the
losing the
Heisman
game, though.
quarterback, older,
Mhm.
experienced. They're rolling. They've had their tough games. They've had their big games, the big, publicized games. Like, you got the USC game, Caleb Williams crying on the sideline. Uh, like as much as I want Utah to win, I just have to be realistic as a, prognosticator and an analyst of the sport. The quarterback play makes a difference.
Mhm.
And when you have the better quarterback in Washington, than Utah has. And if it was in Salt Lake, I always give them the advantage when it's in Salt Lake. When it's up on that hill and it's sunny and it's the thin mountain air and all the red, the 45,000 red. Ooh, that's definitely flagrant.
Well, I got to put this Virginia game back on. They done came back and it's a 14-14 game in Louisville, folks. And Mr. Logical, did you see that Milwaukee lost that game?
I was watching how they lost. It didn't look good. Didn't look good.
Yeah.
Didn't look good at
So
all.
So all right, so we got some other games going on this weekend. We're gonna do some notes real quick, but of course, I told y'all the other night, I'm shaking in my little space boot powers because we got the Canes coming in, and I told you 21-16 against Miami at Miami, 11-19 in Tallahassee. I've seen the spread at 13 and a half. I've seen
That
it
makes
at
no
14
sense.
and a half. And this is my problem. Last week against Pitt, obviously Florida State didn't look so good. They got out of there with a 24-7 win. The problem was that I think a lot of people missed in that because they just wanted to call somebody overrated because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Florida State was playing without both their starting receivers, Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. Johnny Wilson's back at practice, so I'm expecting him to play. I still don't know if Keon Coleman's going to play. I still don't even know what's wrong with Keon Coleman. Like, it just happened before the game. I went to go set up my FanDuel, and, and it said out, undisclosed. So I don't know what's going on with Keon Coleman. I don't know if he's injured. I don't know if he had something personal going on. But the good news, to some degree, no injury. I don't want to say injuries are good news, but Daryl Porter, Miami's best corner, left the game against NC State last week with an injury. So we'll see what his status is. So I cannot, for the life of me, and I know last year Florida State went to Miami and won 45-3. But
And you're worried that Miami can win this year.
I still don't even know who Miami's quarterback is going to be. Like, I was listening to the Up in Smoke. I think that, or Through the Smoke, I think is the podcast, the Miami Hurricane podcast, trying to get some intel. I don't listen to it regularly, but I was listening to it just because it's Florida State week. And they were having a debate on which of three quarterbacks should start this weekend.
If you have three, you don't have one.
Yeah, so Tyler Van Dyke 2 years ago was the toast of the town. He was getting the Drake May love. He came into Tallahassee. Florida State won, on the last possession. But he was supposed to be a top 10 NFL draft pick. But he's been hurt. He got hurt last year. He's been hurt this year. He's back, but he's still throwing picks. They got Emory Williams, the freshman, who came in when they beat Clemson a couple of weeks ago in overtime. Problem is, he didn't throw the ball more than 3 yards. True freshman. And then they got another quarterback. I can't pronounce his name, but they got another quarterback that, he's the future. He's the do-it-all quarterback with the legs and everything. So I have no idea what quarterback is going to walk into that stadium. All I know is I'm going to be watching that game with one hand on my heart and the other hand on my butt, making sure nothing comes out. You know what I'm saying? Like, all I know, and I know this was over 30 years ago, but every time I see orange and green, every time I see a U on the side of the helmet, the first thing that comes to my mind is wide right. So Miami haunts me. I think Florida State wins. I don't think there's no need to be scared and upset.
I mean, you've been a little bit more dramatic than you need to be for the sake of the fact that there's a lot of games where the top teams could lose this weekend. Mike is selling this way too hard.
It's a
Yes,
rivalry game.
it's a lot of games this week
It's
where
one of the best rivalries
the
in college
teams in the
football.
top 6 to 8 of the college football playoff, it can shape the landscape. But ultimately, these next couple of weeks are going to be fodder. You got this week, yeah, you got some competitive games. You got the Ole Miss Georgia game. But the week before the rivalry game, it's going to be some cupcakes. So it's going to be a bunch of cupcakes. And if your rival is a team from another conference that really isn't that good, you're going to be able to coast. Like Georgia's going to be able to coast for a couple of weeks into the SEC championship game. Bama's going to play somebody like Sam Houston State or Folsom or some prison football team or something like that. They're going to play them before they play Auburn. Texas is going to do the same thing. All of these schools are going to play. So right now, they just got to focus what they have in hand. And that's the thing. That's why you don't see a lot of upsets in college football because, I mean, when it comes down to it, you could just run the ball down the throat of the other team. Even if your quarterback can't pass, like the NFC Championship game last year when Brock Purdy couldn't throw it against the Eagles. If that happened against Michigan this week against Penn State, Michigan can just go out there and just run the ball for a half and throw little quick screens and probably still win because they have that much more dominant up front than the other team.
I promise
so
you.
Florida State will be fine. I'm going to call it the announcer's jinx. Florida State will be fine. Miami obviously has a coach that doesn't really understand time management, things of that nature. That's why he got fired in different little places. But they're making a comeback. They're doing a turnaround, but Florida State will be fine.
I promise you, I will not do this before the Gator game. I promise you, I will not have this same thought and same nervousness when we play the Gators in 2 weeks. But with that being said, speaking of the Gators, that's the next question. Is Jaden Daniels going to play this weekend? You know, concussion
Is he
protocol.
allowed to play?
Well, he's practicing, but I haven't checked the reports for today. But yesterday, he was allowed to practice, but still wasn't cleared for contact yet. But I figure if they're allowing him to practice, then he's probably on the right side of.
He went back in the game, for a play. It just was a false start penalty, and they took him back out. Yeah. So at least he was capable enough to get up and go back in the game. Granted, maybe it was early, maybe a little premature to put him back in the game, but he went out for a play, came back, came in. And I get that, they're working out these guys and look out for concussion protocol. But if they can play, if they can figure out a way to make it through that concussion test, these guys are going to play.
Well, they got the Gators coming in. So, Billy Napier, I suggest you win that.
Excuse me.
I suggest you win that game. Especially if Jaden Daniels doesn't play, I suggest you win that game. I don't think he's going to get fired, but he's going to come into next season with a sweaty butt, So
yeah, I don't know why these colleges are so quick to fire coaches because I think that sets you back more than you think.
Well, it does, and I think it just depends on the school itself. Like, if this was, say, Ole Miss, it's probably not that way because Ole Miss doesn't win anything anyway. Like,
you would think the same thing about Auburn. You would think like, oh, Auburn, you fired coach, you'll be able to bounce back because of the talent pool you have around. But
well, the problem with Auburn is your in-state rival is like the best team in college football ever. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem. You got to keep up with the Joneses. But with Florida, like, they've won national titles in the past, so they feel like, I love this quote, Mike Bianchi, formerly of the Orlando Sentinel, the Florida Gators, the arrogance of Notre Dame, the tradition of Wake Forest. So Florida always thinks that they're a little bit higher of a level. And in recent history, I mean, they've won all three of their, just like Florida State, they've won all three of their national titles within the last 30 years. So like, they're not Alabama, from the standpoint of they've been winning championships since college football was created, but they're more new money and they don't want to lose that position. And now you got your rival Georgia, taking over the sport, back-to-back defending national champions, maybe going for a third one. So, I mean, I guess the pressure just burst pipes. But that's what the transfer portal is for. You can get somebody to come to Florida.
Yeah, you should. I mean, you should be able to recruit that state pretty well because it's pretty easy to.
Yeah, I heard Danny Cannell mention today that Jalen Daniels over at Kansas, might be going to USC next year. So, like we are already getting transfer portal rumors, which brings me to NC State. The reason why I picked Wake Forest over them is because they got some turmoil. Quarterback MJ Morris came in because Brendan Armstrong from Virginia was stinking up the joint, as they say. He went 3-1 as a starter, and then he pulled himself and said, "I'm redshirting." Now, I don't know if that means he's going to transfer. Like his father came out and said that he's not planning on transferring. But there's a whole lot of time between November 9th, 2023 and August 2024. So we'll see what happens there. And Virginia, I be damn, just fumbled on a pitch, picked it up and ran it into the end zone. And now they're about to take a touchdown lead. Or he fumbled. He was running. He got hit, fumbled, fell on the ground. Everybody's on the ground. Another player from Virginia picks it up, runs it into the end zone. So we're about to be 21-14.
21 points in the third quarter.
Yeah,
they went 14-0 at halftime, 21 unanswered points in the third quarter.
Yep. And of course, it was Malik Washington, one of the best receivers in college football, that picked it up, because that's what the best players do. They just find the ball. Syracuse and Pitt. Nobody cares about that game. I just wanted to mention it because they're playing at Yankee Stadium this weekend. Can Cincinnati get their first Big 12 win? They're playing against Houston this week. They're the only one of the new Big 12 schools that have not won a game yet. So, good luck, Cincinnati. And then finally, my last note. Can Liberty make the New Year's Six? So they're undefeated.
Undefeated, I saw that.
They play in the next to weakest G5 conference. The MAC is probably the weakest, and CUSA is probably the next level up from that.
I'm gonna see what potential bowl game they could get in.
So this is the thing. You got Tulane, who went to the New Year's Six and beat Trojangelis last year, because remember USC gave up 46 to them. Their only loss this season was to Ole Miss without their starting quarterback. But they got UTSA coming up in 2 weeks. UTSA has already lost 3 games. So they're probably not going to make the New Year's Six, even if they win the American. They're undefeated in conference right now. So we got that same situation where UTSA, SMU, and Tulane are all undefeated, but only UTSA and Tulane play each other. SMU's starting quarterback has been hurt. They got Memphis coming up. So what happens? Over in the Mountain West, we saw Air Force get their pants pulled down by Army last week.
My dad texted me as soon as that game was over. Retired Army veteran. And text me all day as soon as the game ended. Boop, boop.
Yeah. Up at Mile High. Got embarrassed at Mile High. And so they lost that game. Fresno State lost a couple of weeks, to Wyoming. So those are the 2 front runners right now for the Mountain West. But if those teams end up losing another game, is Liberty's schedule weak enough? The answer is yes. But is it weak enough that you keep an undefeated team out of the New Year's Six to put a 2-loss team in? We'll have to see. You know what I'm saying? But now it is time for some NFL picks.
Mine all gonna be wrong.
I want one of those
all
things.
Gonna be wrong.
Whenever we get like a soundboard, I need that thing to.
We'll get a producer.
I need that. But I picked the Bears tonight. You picked Carolina.
Correct.
So we got a 10-9 slobber knocker going on in the third quarter.
Just a real slugfest going on over here.
Yeah, Carolina's only touchdown is on a punt return by former Bear Amir Smith-Marset. We got DJ Moore and Deontay Foreman from the Bears that played for Carolina last season. Moore, of course, was a part of the draft trade and everything that ended up getting Carolina Bryce Young. So a lot of storylines here that are a lot better than the game. So, but let's go ahead and get this thing started. You know what I'm saying? My Washington Commanders, fresh off the win against the Patriots, going up to the Pacific Northwest to go play in front of the 12th man. Who you got?
I'm gonna take Washington just because I saw Seattle was favored by 6.5 points, and I don't know how they get favored by 6.5 points when they only scored 3 points 4 days ago. So just that alone, just you know what, I go Washington. I like what Bieniemy's doing with Sam Howell. His numbers are better than Patrick Mahomes. Shout out to Eric Bieniemy. Maybe you get yourself into the coaching conversation again.
Maybe he gets a promotion.
They get normally like that doesn't really work out because that puts you behind the 8 ball because you come with these extra lofty expectations and they kind of cut a year off your growth. They figure you were there for a year and that was your learning year, and now we got rid of the guy. Now you need to be successful this year going forward, kind of thing. Yeah. It happens. And that's why like those interim coaches, like, man, just go ahead and coach well and interview for another job. Don't even try to get the current job. But I'll take Washington. Like I said, I like what Bieniemy's doing. Sometimes when you tank, you give other guys opportunity. Guys who've been kind of itching to play behind Sweat and Chase Young. Maybe they get an opportunity to Geno holds on the ball too long. Guy gets strip sack. So we'll go with that. So I'll take Washington.
You know why I'm picking Seattle?
Because you don't like picking your team?
No, it's because I know my team. Washington, instead of the Commanders, they should be called the Washington Elixirs. Because when there's something ailing your team, you just play Washington and it will all go away. We saw a couple of Thursday nights ago, these same Chicago Bears come into FedEx Field and put up a 40-burger. We saw the Giants, who are last in the league in scoring, beat Washington and hold Washington to 7 points.
Yeah, but they also averaged like 31 points in their 2 games versus Philly.
Yeah, which tells me that they go up and down depending on their competition. But this is the key. Why did I bring up the elixir? Because Geno Smith has thrown 6 interceptions in his last 4 games. He ain't got to worry about that against Washington secondary. And then since their bye week in week 5, in 3 of their 4 games after the bye, they have scored 13, 10, and 3. So you know what? You feeling bad, Seattle? Come on and get you some Commander. You'll feel better right away. So I'm going with Seattle. I do like where Washington is headed. Obviously I didn't want to lose Montez Sweat and Chase Young, especially like I said with the ills of the secondary. So that was a tough pill to swallow, but maybe that'll galvanize the team, and maybe there was some locker room stuff that we don't know about, all that kind of stuff.
True.
Howell looks good, but Seattle's defense is much improved. So I'm gonna take Seattle. I'm a reverse on you real quick because I know I told you one thing in our pre-show, but I changed my mind. So
changed your mind already?
I changed my mind. I was battling with myself, and I don't want to do like I picked Seattle because I was like, hey, let me just look at this and take the simple answer or whatever. So I am going to take the Colts over the Patriots. I'm going to go with it. Playing over in Germany. The Colts are top 10 in rushing.
Because I literally did the same thing.
Oh, okay. They're top 10 in rushing, 12th in total yards, and they have the 7th best scoring offense in the NFL. Problem is their defense, obviously. But the Patriots only average 15 points a game. And Mac Jones, I don't know if it's I don't know. Bill O'Brien was supposed to fix it, and both of us thought that New England would be better just from the standpoint of he had a defensive coordinator calling his offensive plays. Now you got an actual offensive coordinator, a good offensive coordinator coming in there, and it still don't look right. But it goes back to something that you said earlier about a whole different team. We were talking about Patrick Mahomes and his lack of dependable receivers.
Yeah.
New England has the same thing. They just don't have Patrick Mahomes. So I don't know why I'm making this harder than it needs to be. Give me the Colts.
The
And
thing with the Patriots that you always can kind of lean on is I think Belichick has a philosophy and a game plan that works, but it all has to work. You ever watch like those cooking shows, like those baking shows, and they got to make like, like the drink reality shows and all that. And it was like, you
yeah.
got 35 minutes to make this drink or whatever.
So yeah.
And if everything goes according to plan, when you present the drink to the judge, it's incredible. But the problem is if you can't find a soft enough lime to squeeze and get the right whatever, and now somebody else has used up all the ice, and it's like, what do I do? That's kind of with New England. So New England, when it all flows, where they can get the ball first drive and get you a 6 or 7 minute drive and get a touchdown, if they could do that, and then they can implement their defensive strategy after they got the ball. A lot of times they'll get the ball and they won't score. And then they can never get to where they can implement what they want to do defensively, because now the other team doesn't have to fear. They're like, oh, they're not in rhythm today. Like, I can see Mac Jones isn't on today. The game plan isn't working today. But with Bill, sometimes just when it works, it's on. It's like, how did they, like how they lose 38-3 to Dallas, but they play Philly and Miami tough in back-to-back weeks prior to the 38-3 loss to Dallas. It's just one of those things. Indy, they have nothing to lose. They got a backup quarterback that's basically auditioned to be the backup somewhere else. Hopefully think he could be a starter.
And as you can see,
they have better weapons than New
England.
Yeah. So we'll go with that.
Yeah, and they got the second leading rusher in the NFL too, Zach Moss. And as you saw on Mr. Logical Screen, Devontae Foreman takes the ball into the end zone. So 16-10 Chicago. So then remember that intro that I said was going to make you laugh? So Jordan Love has played 18 games. He didn't start all of them, but he's played in 18 games. How many interceptions do you think he has?
12.
11.
That's close.
11. He has 8 alone this season, when he was starting. So this is the thing that always surprises me every week when I look at these stats. The Steelers have the 31st ranked defense, meaning next to last. But
that's awful.
But they forced 16 turnovers, so you just never know. You would never even think about it because every time you see it, they're forcing a turnover. TJ Watt's in there getting sacks. They're getting fumbles. We remember the Monday night game against Cleveland. Where Cleveland had the 5 turnovers, but Cleveland still scored a lot in that game. But so it's always hard for me to realize. It just feels wrong to say that Pittsburgh doesn't have a good defense. It just doesn't feel right. It's not Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh has a good defense. They just have such a pedestrian offense. And they have their players are shaped like talented players. I'm not sure exactly how good they are. But Najee Harris is just a big back. He's like Derrick Henry size. I think he's like 6'2", 240. That's Derrick Henry size. But Derrick Henry looks like a guy who was that big playing running back because of the way that Tennessee's offense flows through him. Mm-hmm. Najee Harris never looks like that. Pickens is like 6'4", 215, 220.
And he's really good. They just don't get him the ball.
That's A.J. Brown and Julio size. That's a big dude. But Kenny Pickett is basically a JV quarterback that's filling in for the varsity guy that, got suspended for a couple of games. That's what it looks like. He does not look like he's on par with the other players they have offensively.
With his little hands.
I don't think his hands are little. I just think he likes to wear the gloves. I think the gloves make him look like less intimidating. Like I need you to be sucking the blood off your fingers like Joe Burrow was in the Sunday night game against Buffalo. Like he didn't call a timeout. He just was out there just biting off his fingernail or whatever. I think it was on his throwing hand. He just was like, just looking, getting the play, just like eating blood off his hands. I think sometimes you need that, especially when you're a quarterback.
Side note, was I the only person that was disgusted by Steve Nash constantly licking his hands during games?
Everybody, like, I noticed that their guy, like I saw a game, I think the guy called like an 8-yard out route. He caught it, flipped the ball to the ref, spit on his gloves. I was like, if I'm the ref, I'm like, this is what y'all doing at every play? Like, you caught the ball, but you spitting on you got the stick of gloves on.
Yeah, but yeah, so I got Pittsburgh winning this game. You know, I think it'll be close just because, you know, you mentioned
they can't score any points.
Right.
Yeah.
So I could see something like 19-13 or something along those lines. Just
2013, 2016.
Yeah.
Late touchdown.
Man, that pass that Bryce Young just threw. That you know when you know the ball wobbles, they call it a duck.
Yeah.
Like he just threw that pass and that shit looked like a boomerang.
Like, was it like a quick pass or something?
Yeah, he was rushing. Like, I don't even think he needed to rush, but it was like, you know, maybe he heard footsteps or something. You know,
is it cold in Chicago? A lot of guys aren't wearing sleeves, so let's see. Is this the throw? Because I think you're a few seconds ahead of me. Nah, that was a more accurate.
No, it's not. It was the play before that. It was the play before that. But yeah, so yeah. Then the most confusing game of the week for me. The Saints against the Vikings. So confused about that game. I have no idea who's going to win that game. I have no idea what the Saints are. You know, they're awful at home, which when would you ever say that?
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Here's something for you. They actually average 6 more points on the road than they do at home. It just doesn't make sense.
They're just not a good coach team.
They're just not a good team, you know. But the Vikings, you know, they're down Cam Akers. You know, Achilles out for the season. We got to see if KJ Osborne is going to play because he got the concussion last week.
Yeah, he caught that whole helmet.
Yeah,
it was just boom, like right to the face.
So I think I'm going to take the Saints. You know, they're 7th in total defense, and you know Flores has been doing a good job the last couple of weeks with Minnesota's defense. But I just think that Derek Carr will make one more play.
I think Minnesota, they're going to ride their fairy tale season. I like Josh Dobbs. I just feel like when it comes down to it, he made a lot of mistakes early on when he came in the Atlanta game. It just Atlanta had the ball inside the 5 after a turnover, couldn't get a touchdown. They had another turnover, couldn't get a touchdown. Whereas I think other teams will capitalize, mainly being New Orleans. Because Josh Dobbs, he's going to make a mistake because I don't know if Justin Jefferson's not going to play and you're out KJ Osborne.
Check out the stat on your screen real quick.
First 7 starts of all these guys.
Yeah. So
they're trying to say, don't give up hope.
Yeah,
all
don't give up.
All these guys are 6'4" and taller though.
Matt Stafford has 6 touchdowns and 12 interceptions.
they're all. Like,
all right, but go ahead. I just wanted you to see that real quick.
Playing quarterback, and that's gonna be the difference.
Yeah,
they could stand in, and Joe Burrow got injured, and they had to like revamp the offensive line to get better and get better players.
I just wanted you to see that real quick. But yeah, Minnesota. So you're taking Minnesota to win?
I'm taking New Orleans just because I think Minnesota, like inevitably, he's gonna make some mistakes. If he has Justin Jefferson, maybe like I don't know if he can come back yet. I know what the IR
he opened up his window. They opened up his practice window.
Yeah, but so I don't know if he can come back. If he can't come back, and then you're out Osborne, and then you're out Akers, it just. I know these guys are all professional NFL players, but you're bringing in a lot of backups to play against a team of defensive starters. It's just unlikely that you have that kind of conglomerate of backups playing short notice, playing out of position, and they're just going to line up and just beat, another top, New Orleans is pretty top tier defense, top 10, top 12, currently every year. So Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give the edge to New Orleans in that game.
Okay. All right. So Carolina just punted the ball. We're at 4:26 left in the third quarter. Still 16-10 Chicago. Louisville is on the move. Just got a pass interference against Virginia. So they're at the Virginia 43 right now. All right. So then, what might be the game of the week that nobody's talking about?
Word.
Cincinnati and Houston. Cincinnati has awakened. They are back. Not Bryce Young. CJ Stroud just broke the record for rookie pass yards in the game. My guy Tank Dell going off, from the University of Houston. Now I think Houston has a chance to win this game, but I wouldn't dare pick it.
Why not?
I just think that Cincinnati's on a different level right now. Like, they had their early season funk that they usually go through. I just think I don't know. I just think it's too much. Like, I think Cincinnati's just at a different level right now.
Cincinnati has all their weapons. They got Mixon. They got Higgins. They got Chase. And they got Burrow seemingly healthy.
I don't know how he got healthy. How did he get healthy?
Maybe just stretched it out a lot. Maybe he didn't practice throughout the week. Maybe he didn't work on certain drills and just like, listen, you're just gonna, maybe they just kept it light because you figure like, what is he, 24?
Something like that, maybe.
Something like that. I mean, you remember what life was like when you're 24. You used to bounce back from all kinds of stuff. Now he probably just was one of those situations where they protected him with the play calling because I don't recall him like throwing 50 times a game in that stretch.
Well, against the Rams, he threw a lot on that Monday night game.
But they weren't far. They weren't. I think something about like a lot of his passes were 5 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they're long handoffs. Like,
right.
Granted, I know that's 15 feet. It's difficult for me to throw consistently 5 yards in an NFL game. But a quarterback that's been to the Super Bowl, it's not too difficult for him. That's probably what they did. Like, you know what? We'll keep it simple. Get the ball in the playmaker's hands. Probably why Chase didn't get the ball a lot because he's your over-the-top threat. And it's like, we don't have time to get you these routes as often as we want.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now they have it. Higgins was just catching the ball. And like, it just – and the Collinsworth was talking about how he's like, I don't know how they're going to be able to keep all these guys. He's like, just the salary cap won't allow it. But he's like, for right now, he's like, they look like they're back.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they only scored 24 points against Buffalo, but it felt more like 30, 31 points. It felt more like they were in complete control of that game from the offensive side of the ball. And then Mixon wasn't doing well running the ball until they had to start running it. They eat the clock up, and he was getting like 3 or 4 yards of run. They had him pretty well boxed in, but they stuck to it. That's one thing I admire about them. They stuck to the run game, and they essentially, locked the game up that way. So I like the Houston story at 4-4, potentially getting to 5-4. But I think the playmakers on the offensive side of the ball for Cincinnati are going to be the difference.
Yep. Then, a game that most people will probably think is the game of the week, and I can make a statistical argument why it might be the best game of the week. Baltimore hosting Cleveland. Now, Baltimore, at home, besides the Colts game, because, they lost that game in overtime, they've looked like what we used to the Saints looking like at home, or what we think of Seattle like at home. So
just dominant.
Yeah, like this season at home, Baltimore has outscored their opponents 143-56. That includes holding Seattle to 3 this past weekend. I believe Detroit scored 6 on them a couple of weeks ago. This is a matchup of the first, number 1 being Baltimore, and third, rushing offenses. This is a matchup of the first being Cleveland, and second, pass defenses. So Lamar, it's time to earn your money, baby.
I always want to pick Baltimore and I always want to pick against Cleveland. But when you like give the numbers, it's like this is a pick'em game. It's a
It
toss
really
up.
is. And you got to remember, they played earlier this year. Baltimore won, I believe, 28-3, but Deshaun Watson didn't play that game. DTR started that game. And, it was his first start. It just didn't go very well playing against that type of defense.
Correct.
So
That's not how you want to be indoctrinated into the NFL.
no, I'm still going with Baltimore, but I think it's going to be a tight game. Maybe neither team gets to 23 points, but of course, with Baltimore being at home, there's the potential that this could be a 31-3 type game.
Let's see what the weather forecast is for this weekend. It's supposed to be like 70. It's like 70 degrees or something ridiculous. All right, so 52, sunny. Yeah, that I was trying to see maybe if there was rain, it would impact either team.
Mhm.
Doesn't seem to be the case. Seems like it's going to be good weather. It should shape up to be a good game. One of those 24-20 games where it's just the numbers will be ugly. Quarterback 17 for 28, 211 yards, touchdown on a pick, something like that. I don't think it'll be a pretty game, but definitely will be high scoring. But I can see like what defense makes the play, who gets the interception late in the third that kind of shifts the momentum. One of those kind of games, because I don't really fully believe in Cleveland's offense because it's inconsistently, because their starting quarterback hasn't been there for 2 seasons. They've had a good defense for years. Myles Garrett been the anchor of that defense, because essentially any free agent defensive end is like, oh, I can go to Cleveland and be opposite of Myles Garrett while he's getting double teamed and I can get off on this side. It seems like that helps those guys out a lot. But Cleveland doesn't match the offensive firepower that they have with the defensive, coordination that they have. So that always makes it look like Myles Garrett has to do everything to get them short field so they can get a 14-10 lead at halftime, because he created a fumble or he stopped the jet sweep and now the team has to punt. So if it's one of those games where he has to be the man, it could be tough because, offensively, you got to put the points up. You can't just rely solely on Myles Garrett to be the guy that's wreaking havoc for Baltimore. You got to do it when you get the ball back. So if that doesn't happen, then I can see Baltimore winning it easily. But you look at Cleveland, man, it's like you want to pick against them, and then they go out and beat the brakes off San Francisco.
Yeah, they're like we said the other day, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, all 5-3. Baltimore 7-2. So, if Cleveland wins this game, we talked about, we picked Pittsburgh, we picked Cincinnati. That division is going to be in a lockjaw, So, Tennessee looks like they have given the keys to Will Levis. He's officially named the starter. I like it. He's played well, definitely better than I would have thought that he would have played.
I like it because it's definitive. I like it because it was a decision made clearly, like this, we're going to do this, and you got to run with it. It also buys Vrabel another year.
Yeah, that too. All right,
pop quiz. This year and next year.
Pop quiz. Who's the worst pass defense in the league?
I thought it was the Chargers, but I think they might have improved over the last couple of weeks. It was Denver. That changed. I'm assuming this is where I have this conversation. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay.
Well, sort of. The answer is still the Chargers. The Tampa is 31st. So yeah, so this isn't going to be. So Will Levis had an okay game, but he was playing against Pittsburgh. So you expect that Thursday Night Football at Pittsburgh.
He had a great game against Atlanta.
He had a great game against Atlanta. He's going to have a great game against Tampa Bay, I believe. Tampa Bay still can't run the ball. They try now. They didn't try before. Now they tried, but they just can't do it. So
I don't know how you can't write. That has to be scheme, because it can't be talent. It has to be like the scheme. Like you're just not.
Oh,
Your
yeah, it's got to
blocking,
be scheme because Byron
your
Leftwich ain't there no more.
your blocking just doesn't match your play call. Like, oh, we're gonna run this kind of run, but you don't have.
Well, their offensive coordinator is a first-time offensive coordinator too. So that matters. But I'm going with Tennessee in this game.
I picked Tennessee as well. I mean, like I said, I like Baker Mayfield. I like his moxie.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think he's on a team that's in shambles. I think they leveraged the potential bad years to have Tom Brady there for the 3 good years. And it worked out because they got a chip out of it.
Ooh, Anthony
But
Calandria might be about to take Tony Muskett's job. Virginia's back in the red zone. Sunday is normally a day for prayer. People go to church and, worship and all that. So it might be time to pray for one Trevor Lawrence because the 49ers have had a week to digest this 3-game losing streak. Brock Purdy has had a week to get over whatever headaches he had, because something was obviously wrong with him against Cincinnati. You gave Shanahan a week to game plan for you. So I like San Francisco in this game, but something that I thought was interesting. So, of course, the 49ers have lost their last 3 games.
correct.
They haven't won a game since October 8th. Jacksonville hasn't lost since the month of September. So, this is one of those
A lot
things,
of Jacksonville's wins have been fool's gold because we could talk about stats and game and impact and game management. I know that was a big knock on Brock Purdy. It's like, oh, he's a game manager. If you rely on him, they have to throw you to victory, yada, yada, yada. Trevor Lawrence still has 9 touchdown passes in 9 games in a passing league. When he's not a game manager quarterback. He's a
he
big
got
arm,
weapons.
big body quarterback with weapons, multiple weapons. Ridley, Kirk, Ingram, Zay Jones, ETN, Doug Peterson is the head coach. So he has the framework for a high-powered offense. It just has. I think it might have been a situation. Maybe he's just playing smart. And he's like, hey, you know what? We can run the ball, whatever the case may be. But with that being said, he still only has 9 touchdowns. So the whole game management moniker that we've kind of attached to the hip of Brock Purdy can be applied to a lot of these other quarterbacks. San Francisco, I think they'll win this game. I don't want to say they win easily. I just haven't seen a game where Trevor had to throw it 40, 42 times, 45 times, and have to go for 300 yards and a few touchdowns. Like, he hasn't had that game. And it's not like they've been playing terrible opponents. They played Atlanta, they played Buffalo, they played some good games. They played a couple overseas, and I think that kind of jump-started them.
It's crazy.
This can be one of those games where it might be a situation where you can be down 14-0 rather quickly.
It's just I don't know. Like, I just think that Jacksonville is just in the wrong place at the wrong time. San Francisco, I would have probably picked San Francisco no matter who they were playing this week. Just on some, they had to buy, they got it to, they're going to get it back together now, and So I got San Francisco. Then you got another potential game of the week. You got Detroit playing against the Chargers. And the last time,
Detroit all the way.
I do too. Last time we saw Detroit, they were getting embarrassed by Baltimore. Coming off the bye, Chargers they're at home, but short week. They were, Monday Night Football, but they were at home too. So they
gotta win. I think Detroit got to win after that.
Did they?
Yeah, I think they got to win after that.
I thought Detroit was on bye last week.
They got to win. I'm trying to think because I watched it. It wasn't Pittsburgh. Who was it?
I'm gonna look this up real quick.
Was it the Bears?
Yeah, so they were on bye last week. And
what was their game before? Was it the Bears?
Oh, it was the Monday Night Football game against the Raiders.
Yeah, that's what it was. The Raiders game.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so Detroit, coming off the bye week, Detroit's just different this year. Jared Goff, my MVP, has been, of course, the Baltimore game, notwithstanding, but but the Chargers, they're just too topsy turvy, up and down, week to week. You never know what you're going to get. Life is like a box of chocolates, Jenny. Like you just
Yeah,
never know what you're going to get from the Chargers. So, I'm going with Detroit. I think it's going to be a shootout. Like I think it'll look like
I think it'll
score
be.
score wise.
I think the score. The Chargers don't score a lot of points. Ever since Justin Herbert's first year, where he kind of came out of nowhere and threw like over 30 touchdowns, it's been going down every year. And I think last year, I think he was like 25 touchdowns, 11 picks.
Mm-hmm.
I think every year Staley gets more and more conservative, and they become more and more mundane. It's like they're playing with this fear that something can go wrong. I'm like, you have too much talent not to just go for it. Like defensively, you got Khalil Mack on one side, Joey Bosa on the other side. It's like I'm blitzing up the gaps like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting pressure on you, and I don't think they do that at all. They don't put pressure on you offensively. They don't put pressure on you defensively. They just sit back and just jab. They just jab. I'm like, yo, you're a heavyweight boxer. I remember one time I was training in this MMA gym, and I was like bouncing on my toes, and this guy was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "You too big for that." He's like, "You need to get down here, stay on your toes, but stop bouncing." He's like, "That's not what you need to do." He's like, "You see all these shoulders?" He's like, "You need to duck behind these shoulders and just throw bombs from here." He's like, "You don't need to be bouncing like these other little guys." I think the Chargers do that. They operate like they have a young team. It's like, no, they should be putting up points offensively, and they should be destroying people defensively between Jarwin James, they had JC Jackson. For some reason, that couldn't work out. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, they had Tranquil, they let him go. It just they don't operate like a team that has talented players. They operate like a coach that doesn't want to get fired. Like they should be putting up 27 points a week with that, with the quarterback you have, with his lack of ego. He doesn't
Eckler's a
cheat.
touchdown machine.
Eckler's a touchdown machine. Get the ball. I forgot about Eckler. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how many players they
And you
have.
forgot about Derwin James too.
I said Derwin James on.
Oh, did you say Derwin?
Yeah,
Okay, I missed it.
but
But yeah,
I didn't say him first. I said Khalil
right,
Mack and Joey Bosa
right,
first.
right,
Now to
right,
come
right.
back with the Derwin James, like you have so much talent at every level where you need it,
Yeah,
and it's like, not we're gonna get 17 points or 20 points, or we're gonna be. It just like I said. That's why I don't know why people are picking them to win AFC West or picking them because they don't function like a team that goes out in the field, puts their helmet on, and expects to win.
because nobody wants to do the same thing. Like the Chiefs have owned that division. So everybody wants to get their bid in and it's over. The Chiefs are over, like, no, the Warriors are over. The Chiefs aren't over.
That's not a championship like last year. They were hoisting a trophy last summer.
We got 24-17. Virginia gets the field goal, 7:54 to go. Can we get an upset? Number 11, Louisville on the ropes. So your team has a returning Kyler Murray to deal with. What's your thoughts?
That's going to be a win for Atlanta because Arizona's tanking.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say.
He's got to get some rhythm too.
You got to get some rhythm. You got to get some trade value. Because someone's going to need a quarterback next year. Tampa Bay's going to need a quarterback. Who else is going to need a quarterback next year that's going to be willing to trade, that it won't be in position? Hell, Atlanta might need a quarterback. Who knows? So he's out here auditioning.
The Rams probably need to get another backup, right?
The Rams might need another starting quarterback.
The Rams might have to go get Zach Wilson or something.
Or maybe he goes out there and they dominate. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I got Atlanta too. Who's starting for the Giants this weekend?
Some dude named Danny DeVito.
Yeah, Tommy DeVito. He was in a movie.
He was in a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger called Twins.
Tommy DeVito, yep. Carolina with the field goal.
Who they brought in another guy.
I know that's what I was about to
Matt
pop quiz
Barkley.
you. Yep, Matt Barkley. Yep. So
Matt Barkley came in.
16-13 Carolina with 11:06 left. But yeah, Matt Barkley's the backup. That was going to be my pop quiz. Well, since you got that one,
Nailing it,
you,
dog. That's what I
yeah.
do.
So how many points are the Giants averaging this year?
Well, 15.5.
11.2.
That I gave them more credit than they deserve.
You know, yeah.
It's a
And I
lot of
didn't.
passionate Giants fans around here too. That's a crazy thing. Like a lot of passionate Eagles fans and Giants fans, and they are another team. They're just like the Chargers. You don't give. You don't. Your scheme, your whatever it is. It just they never give enough. It's like they weren't averaging that many points last year.
Yeah. They got the Cowboys, and we saw what happened on opening night with Daniel Jones.
I saw it was 16.5, I think, or 17.5.
The spread?
I wrote down the spread.
Oh, I didn't even see that one. Yeah,
The
I didn't
spread for the Dallas Giants game, I think, is 15.5.
Let's see. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, that's nuts. If so, I don't care who's the quarterback in an NFL game. That's 17.
So because in the Giants Jets game a couple weeks ago in the rain, the Giants didn't call a pass. They just kept giving it to Saquon.
I need to go somewhere. I need somebody to sit down with me and teach me how to come up with spreads because, Baltimore is a 6.5 point favorite, over Cleveland. Tampa Bay's favorite over 10. So I guess I can understand that when they're at home. Atlanta's
has Seattle 6.5 over Washington after they only scored 3 last week.
Atlanta's a 2-point favorite over Arizona. The Jets are a 1-point favorite on the road. Jets shouldn't be favored over anybody right now, except for maybe
Jets
Carolina.
are favorite. Well, I guess they're starting a rookie.
Well, yeah, that too. But either way it goes, I'm still picking the Raiders.
You're picking the Raiders in that one?
Yeah.
So we're both picking Dallas. I'm taking the Raiders just because Zach Wilson just seems to look like his rookie year highlight looks exactly the same as last week. His haircut's the same, no face, nothing's different. You look exactly the same as you did when you look confused. Remember that draft when they were all taking pictures and he was standing around look like an insurance salesman? He looks exactly as confused in that picture as he does every week. And he
Maybe
says,
he needs to find a younger girl.
Yo, Nick Wright, first things first, he was on this. He was like, they are going to lose their season as soon as Aaron Rodgers got injuries, because they are not going to go out and get a serviceable backup quarterback.
Like the Rams just did.
Like the Rams did. Carson, for whatever people say about Carson Wentz, that year in Indianapolis, he went 27 touchdowns, 7 picks. Yes, he does make the bonehead throw that just baffles you. Why would you throw it out of the end zone? Why would you call a pass play where he was potentially getting sacked for a safety? Whatever the case may be. But the Jets, for as passionate as their fan base is, and they're there, the stadium design is awful. It's crazy. You're leaning over the top. It's on the water. So if it's cold that day, it's cold. It just whips through the stadium. I went there once, it just rained the whole time. It's nothing you do about it. Everyone was sitting under the overhangs by the end of the game. But people are there every week. They're in the parking lot, $30, $40 a park. I mean, people are there. They're tailgating. And then you send out a guy who is ill-prepared, ill-equipped to do the job that you want him to do for a team that has talent. The defense makes plays. A competent quarterback, they beat the Chiefs. A quarterback that just doesn't turn the ball over, a quarterback that threatens your defense, they win more games. Zach Wilson doesn't threaten you in any form or fashion. He could have a gun, it wouldn't be threatening.
Which is crazy how the NFL works because they beat Philly. And if I remember correctly,
I think the weather was bad. I think it was like a wet week we had here in the Northeast, and I think they play it was like a colder, wetter. The game was it was like a wet weather game. And defensively, if you can lock down, and I don't know if Jalen was hurt. I know he's been nursing the injury, But I think Sirianni made a bad call by like calling a pass play when they could have ran it and could have ate some more time off the clock. But they're good defensive teams. So when you're in a good defensive groove and you're calling plays and you're impacting the other team, you need your offense to be able to sustain a drive and get you touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do that consistently enough.
And then, oh wow, touchdown Louisville. That receiver had about 20 yards on everybody. But yeah, so Monday Night Football, Buffalo and Denver. Buffalo's licking their wounds after the loss in Cincinnati the other day. I think I like Buffalo to come back and bounce back and win this game. I think that Denver they've obviously gotten better over the last couple of weeks. I don't know what happened. They didn't trade anybody like we thought they were going to. I don't know. Sean Payton just galvanized the troops and gave them the what for, and now they got their stuff together. So I think this is going to be an intense game that's going to go down to the wire. But I'm going with Buffalo.
All right. So this season, Russell Wilson is 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Yeah, I think he's like third or fourth in touchdowns too.
I think he has something. He's responsible for like 85% of Denver's touchdowns on the year because I think he ran a couple in. I'm taking Denver in this game because I think Denver's playing with house money, and I think their team is just built a little better. I'm not a big fan of how Buffalo uses their assets because everyone's saying they need to get another guy in there next to Stephon Diggs. I'm like, you got Gabe Davis. Like, to me, he seemed like the perfect complementary number 2. If you go back to that playoff game, we call like 4 touchdown passes, and he was wide open all game long. It's like, okay, at Arrowhead, like you don't get that wide open because you're a low key kind of wide receiver. Like you have to be a viable number 2 to beat a defense that bad that many times. Because after you beat you twice, you get 1 touchdown. Everybody gets 1. Everybody gets the opportunity to get 1. You get 2. Now I'm like, now I got to pay attention to you as a defensive coordinator. Then you get 3. I'm like, all right, listen, we got to watch 13. And then you slack off of Stephon Diggs, and then he gets the 4th one. It's like, all right, like you guys weren't paying attention.
Game over.
Yeah. Ultimately, like, it still worked out. Kansas City.
And they lost that game.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce did a little in and out wiggle thing, and they got the field goal, and they go to overtime, and then we changed the rules. But that's the thing. For some reason, I was talking about they should just run the ball more instead of running with Josh Allen. They seem to be doing it. Their big rundowns seem to be either Josh Allen just ready to scramble, or they're calling like quarterback runs. We saw what happened to Anthony Richardson. We see what happened. Josh Allen doesn't high five fans at halftime. He throws souvenirs into the crowd with his left hand because he can't lift his arm up after a half of it getting hit. Then he probably goes in the locker room, get it massaged, maybe get it shot up, get it stretched out to where he can go out there in the adrenaline and the muscle memory. He can still throw the ball, but he doesn't give high fives. Even after the touchdown, he was giving low fives with his left hand or his right hand. It's like, and the Chris Collinsworth, I think I mentioned the other day, so he's doing a great job of rolling onto his left shoulder when he's getting tackled. How about you stop running the ball? Patrick Mahomes scrambles, but they don't call quarterback sneaks for him.
Yeah, broken plays.
Jalen Hurts' knee hurts, and they're still calling it a tush push. I'm like, just run the sweep off of it. You already have it. But that's the thing is, like, sometimes I think these coaches I understand you want to show the bravado and the toughness. Like I said, Joe Burrow sucking his finger, but I guarantee you he wouldn't just punch his hand into the ground for the fun of it. Right. I'm pretty sure he didn't want to come out of the game because of the finger, but he doesn't want to deliberately keep hurting it. So, yeah, you might not want to come out of the game because of your shoulder, but you got to start calling plays so he doesn't put the shoulder at risk every single drive. Yeah. Like, sometimes you got to scramble. Sometimes you really need this 3rd and 2. Sometimes, man, you just got to punt it and put the defense back out there and go from there. So, That's why I'm gonna go with Denver because I think Russ. Because people talk about Russ doesn't run anymore. It's like, yeah, because if he gets hurt running the ball, you don't pay him like a passing quarterback. He
There
doesn't get
you
a
have it.
$255 million deal if he's Cam Newton. Cam Newton doesn't run. If Cam Newton would have stopped running the ball after he won MVP and focused solely on being a passer who scrambled versus a running quarterback, he probably would have got one of these $200 million deals. But instead, he was getting hit and getting rocked and was constantly nursing something to the point where we could bring you back a week early, but you might get hurt again. And that pushing you down the road, then the owner's like, why am I going to pay a guy that I got to sit for 5 weeks every
Right.
year?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So, obviously football is heading into the playoff swing. We're hitting week 10 in the NFL, week 11 in college, but basketball is back. The NBA is here. So I didn't get eyes on it because I was watching both of these football games. How did the Bucks lose that game?
They just gave up some threes. It was a back and forth game. They were down early. Like when I turned the game on, I think there was like 30-13 or something around those 30-18, 30-13, something like that. Then played out, I watched some TV, went down, got my food, whatever, get ready for the podcast. Halftime, 66-60. It wasn't poorly done. I just think Giannis had an opportunity to turn around and do, like I said, he was in the restricted area for the most part. And a couple of times he passed it. He passed one, it got deflected. I think Halliburton came down and hit a three to give him the lead. So it just was a good back and forth game where, I mean, he was the whole offense. I think he had ended up with 54 points out of 124 of the team's points. So it's one of those games where nobody else is on and your superstar gets 50. A lot of those games you lose. You can ask Devin Booker when he dropped 70. Kobe, his 81. They needed every bit of those 81 because I think they only won by like 8 or 9.
Yeah, they were down like 15 when he took over.
Yeah, so those kind of games. But like I said, for the most part, it's impactful game. I like it. This real quick for you. Who's playing in the Mexico City game right now?
Atlanta and Orlando.
Okay. Did they advertise that enough, or you just know it because we're doing this podcast?
I know it because I just looked at the score a couple of minutes ago.
This is the primetime NBA game on. It should have been this type of stuff that should have been popping up on my social media, like the random NBA videos you get. This is the kind of stuff you need that should be popping up on my social media.
Carolina with the 4th down conversion at their own 12 or so. They might have been a little further. They might have been a little further than that.
Not 19. Oh, and they're throwing it.
Yeah, they.
Ooh, that was close.
It was just inches. It was just inches.
Dumb play call. It's 4th and inches. 5 minutes left, and you call a rollout. That's just stupid. That's kind of stuff that gets you fired as a coach. Look at this play in the back, people. All right, it is 4th and inches from your own 19, and you call this play. And then he barely gets a yard before he gets out of bounds because you have a 5'10" quarterback who weighs about 190.
To be fair, they got stuffed on third.
Anyone.
To be fair, they got stuffed on 3rd and 1.
well, what's better, cutting off half the field on a rollout?
Yeah.
Or trying to push forward with a 220
I think that's something that's done too much in general, though. Like even in college football, like every play is RPO, and it's like just hand the damn ball off and push somebody. But anyway, back to the NBA.
Yeah, back to the NBA.
I
like the NBA so far this year. I like the fact that these older teams are losing, and then maybe they'll start highlighting these younger guys. I like the Mavericks being 6-2. Hopefully, everyone can stay healthy. I'm sick of this low management that's already happened. I think Dame didn't play tonight.
Bradley Beal played for the first time last night. Went 3 for 12.
First time. I can see KD probably sitting out a few games here.
Anthony Davis didn't play last night.
I want the Thunder to get more primetime games, not even games. I want Thunder versus Rockets to be, NBA Wednesday night, Thursday night games. I want Kings versus Wizards. Like, give me just give me the young talent. I want Cavs versus Knicks. You know,
Yeah, so the Cavs,
I
Donovan
want you guys
Mitchell.
to really show the league and show the players and really, show a holistic view of the league, not just the same 12 teams.
Yeah, so Donovan Mitchell, averaging 30.7 points, third in the league. Cavs 3-5. Philadelphia is a lot damn better than we thought they were going to be. And Louisville just broke out. Yeah, that's about a 70-yard touchdown run. So, but Philly looks a lot better than we thought. Maxey is coming into his own. Just like I said he would, but I thought Harden would get traded later in the season. But they've already beaten Boston and Milwaukee, early in the season. But you got to give them the credit because they did it.
Yeah, we're only
You-
10% through the season. I mean, it's
yeah,
82
yeah.
games. We play
Yeah.
most teams play about between 7 and 8.
Yeah, so but you got to give them credit because if they would have lost, I would have said something about it. So I got to say something about it since they won. Bill Simmons and Stugotz was out here talking about how Boston was going to win 70 games, and now they lost 2 games since they said that.
That's such a ridiculous
And they said that
thing. No one's going to win that many games because
and
your stars aren't going to play that many games. The
and
most anybody's going to win this year is 61.
there's
I
people
doubt
saying
anybody
that
wins one of 61 games.
there's people saying that Boston may have the best starting 5 ever.
Hopefully, it's hyperbole.
I mean, they got a good starting 5, you know what I mean? But yeah, like I don't even want to put the energy into trying to think about that or who's better, or whatever. But yeah, so like the Rockets started out 0-3. They've won 4 in a row, including that 34-point win against the Lakers last night. No Anthony Davis. He had the groin spasms in the previous game. So I haven't heard any timetables, like if he's going to play the next game or not. But this is what we fear every year is that Anthony Davis is going to go down and LeBron is going to have to play He-Man. And because the Lakers still can't function when he's not on the floor.
Not at all.
And Louisville,
their team is just as poorly built as it was 2 years ago. And then people thought it was fixed because they made it to the Western Conference Finals last year and they were ready to give Rob Pelinka Executive of the Year. I'm like, cut it out. Listen, I don't keep this caveat. I am a LeBron fan without a doubt. But you got to be realistic. It's like, if Steph Curry, if you took all of the Golden State Warriors and it just was Steph and Clay and you brought 10 new guys in, would you have championship expectations of that team? No. If you took the Clippers and you just had Kawhi and Paul George and you swapped out your 10 other players multiple times over, like you had these 10, you moved 6 of them out, you brought 4 more guys in, 2 more guys from here, and then the other guys that were getting better, they moved. Would you have championship expectations for? You wouldn't. It just doesn't make any sense. So when you hear these, this championship or bust, or what Chris Broussard like to say, LeBob, Larry O'Brien, or bust teams, it's like the Lakers don't look like one of those teams. A few teams look like Boston looks like that team. Denver looks like that kind of team. I think Dallas looks like that kind of team.
I mean, Philly looks like that type of team right now.
Philly, that kind of team. Chicago should. They have like the pieces. They have like the pieces at each level.
That's why I told you I didn't have them making the playoffs. I didn't have them. So I'm wondering right now. Let me get into my stupid sports analyst bag real quick.
All right, let's go.
So we know that these sports are team sports, right? And
correct.
Then, we have
I'm pulling up the Bulls right now, but keep going.
You have your people like Rudy Gay, who's never made the play or never won a playoff series or whatever it is. You had like T-Mac, who never won a playoff series and all that stuff. So I'm wondering if Zach LaVine is the next in line of these players that can't win shit. Because I remember, him in Minnesota with Cat and Wiggins, and they couldn't even make the playoffs. And now he goes to Chicago. They get DeRozan. They grab every rebound Drummond, and they're 3-5, I believe, right now.
Correct.
They went and got Caruso for some reason, a couple years ago. Obviously, Lonzo Ball, that whole story,
Yeah.
they haven't quite recovered from.
But that shouldn't derail your entire train.
No, it shouldn't. You still got DeMar DeRozan, Mr. Mid-range legend. I just don't understand. Kobe White.
You have Kobe White at point guard. You have your DeRozan that can play your 2 or your 3. You got Levine that can play your 2 or your 3. You got Vucevic that can play the 4 or the 5. You got Drummond as your rebounder. So, like, just that start lineup alone, it makes all 5 of those guys require defensive attention. Just being on the floor. Kobe White getting the ball to these guys. You got pick and roll, screens, pin downs with 2 big bodies. It's like, how are you not just feasting in the paint?
Because we don't play like that no more.
Even with you got DeMar DeRozan, Mr. Mid-range. Set the high pick and roll and pull up at the free throw line. You got Levine, the high flyer, backdoor lob passes. Vucevic is a 3-point shooting big. He's a stretch 4. So it's like, how are you, like, if it's ego or if they're not being coached properly, it's one of them, because this roster should be competing for at least the conversation of top 6 in the East at a minimum.
Well,
I've been in that conversation.
I've been waiting about 3 years for Patrick Williams to show up. Like, I thought of him as super talented, and it's just not clicking. Like, I don't know if he's just not a fit in Chicago. I don't know if he's not as good as I thought he was, or what it is. But
when people say fit, the basketball's a simple sport.
It is.
Rebound, defend, take and make open shots. How do you create open shots? Well, I got these bigs that can run off screens. I got this big, I can funnel the ball to the post. I can set this back screen to get this guy an open 3-point look. I can beat my guy off the dribble. Like, there's simple ways to get you points. I get that the defense can adjust to that, but you also counter it with. You have to be a cohesive group.
Yeah, but you got to play defense too.
It's clear that they're not a cohesive group.
But you got to play defense too. And, Levine's not a good defender. Drummond's not a good defender. Vucevic isn't a good defender.
You have, you're 7 feet tall. The basketball court's only what's the basketball court from 48
I think it's
feet
98
wide?
feet. Well, I think it's 98 feet long. Yeah.
And then the corner 3 is 20 and a half feet.
I want to say it's like 55, maybe. No, that's the football field.
Yeah, if you go from the rim to the corner, it's only a 20-foot 3. That's the shortest 3. That's the shortest 3-pointer. So if you factor in, it's maybe 2 feet. So you got 2 feet from the 3-point line, 22. So about 44 to 45 feet wide.
It is 94 by 50.
94 by 50. Okay. You can't defend that with 5 people who are 6'7" and taller. And
no, they can't.
If a guy wants to shoot 30-foot threes, let him shoot it. But anywhere near the line, you should be able to defend.
Yeah,
that's an effort. That's an effort thing. That's a coaching thing. Just size and effort should be enough.
Ooh, and from 59, it's short. Carolina missed the field goal. 1:35 left to go. Looks like Chicago is going to potentially get out of here with the win if they don't do something stupid. Yeah, I think that teams like Chicago are just frustrating because, I don't like to believe in curses and stuff, but is there an MJ curse or something that we don't know about? It just doesn't make sense to me. But Memphis, has only won 1 game. We talked about Ja Morant's 25-game suspension. We talked about, can they go, 16-9? Can they go 17-8? The answer to that question is no.
No, they can't. No. I'm upset with the NBA PA for not appealing that.
I agree. They folded under the pressure, or
they folded under the public pressure for what? I'm like, I don't care. I don't care what y'all think in the public.
The court of public opinion.
court of public opinion never gets
has
you a
never
ring.
sentenced anybody. It has never sentenced anybody. And they gave this man 25 games. Yeah. So Memphis, they're lacking his playmaking. I mean, Desmond Bain, has looked good to start the season. But they don't have that playmaker. Derrick Rose, they got Marcus Smart. Like they don't have, because remember we were talking about Boston last year, and I had said something along the lines of, we got into an argument. So I said something along the lines of, they need to upgrade their point guard. And it didn't even necessarily need to be somebody that could score more. They just needed somebody that could be an actual point guard. And
Those
Marcus,
crunch time moments, like those guys
yeah,
that really like the Mike Conley effect
right.
for Boston, but it doesn't really work for every team where you need him to also score.
Yeah, and speaking of Mike Conley, he had a turnover early in their first game of the season and hasn't had a turnover since. Minnesota leading the league in defense. Like, who would have thunk it? I mean, they got
It's
Rudy
effort,
Gobert.
but that's the thing. It takes effort, and a lot of times in a basketball game, like when the coach pulls the players out, 6 minutes left, they're down, whatever. Like, yo, we're done. But that moment happened before you pulled them out.
Right.
The effort part was done. It was like, there's nothing we could do. This game is over. And if you never give that effort and you go in the first quarter and you're down 39-28 after one quarter, and then the coach wants to say whatever to you in the huddle, you're like, really? Like, I'm rotating, I'm doing what I got to do. And then you go out at halftime and it's 60-45 at halftime.
Whoa.
You're just like,
Bajent.
I'm done.
Bajent. Look at this. So check that out. But
right.
yeah, so the NBA has been good so far. Dallas has looked a lot better. Like you mentioned them, they've looked a lot better than I thought they would. I tell you what, the Knicks put something on the Spurs last night. They put something on the Spurs last night. The Knicks are second in defense, and they pulled out a 21-point win over the Spurs last night. Wemby only had 13 points. So like with these young teams, like we have something to look forward to. Like everybody's paying attention to Wemby, Wemby watch and all that kind of stuff. But Chet Holmgren out here, maybe having a better season than Wemby.
But that's what we need. We need that. I can't wait for the OKC San Antonio matchup.
Yeah, and Louisville escapes 31-24. Like we'll see what the polls do, what the college playoff committee does with that, with this struggle win over a 2-7 Virginia team. Now 2-8. So we got a flag in the Carolina-Chicago game. I thought Chicago had iced it, but I don't know what the flag is.
No, whatever it is, they're going to be able to run the clock out no matter what. Yeah, Carolina doesn't have any timeouts left.
Yeah, man. Bajent wants Fields' job.
Listen, all I know is the better he plays, the more likely we can potentially swing a little deal to get Justin Fields back home to Georgia.
Yeah, now it's time for me to get some basketball on my TV, and then what else is
right now? Atlanta and Orlando. Oh no, it's coming back.
Yeah, it was 73-69 at halftime. Atlanta.
Yep. Third quarter just kicked off.
All right. So what else has stood out to you before we get out of here?
How James Harden wiggled his way out of Philly to get another team that he wanted. That stood out to me. That stood out to me. That the fact that any smart basketball pundit could look at that and say, "Man, that's not going to work." And before even the deal, like James Harden could have gone to maybe a handful of teams. Maybe he could have gone to Chicago if you would have moved Kobe White and Levine, and then you pair him with DeMar DeRozan, and he can have the ball in his hands, a la how he played in Houston, pseudo how he played in Brooklyn. You just got to be able to sometimes you got to be able to leave your ego at the door when you're making like life decisions.
I just don't understand why the Clippers did it, because they had a good thing, from watching their first couple of games of the season. Russ and
Because
Paul George look good together,
Ballmer needs to fill that arena. He needs a Kobe. He
but
needs
he's
a
but
Shaq.
Harden's a free agent after this year.
He's gonna throw a good bag. He
All right.
has to. He's a businessman, and I talked about this, and you guys go ahead and book it because I'm the one that's bringing this up. I'm the only one talking about this. These people who are buying teams now are not your traditional football families. They're not the Rooneys, the Maras, Johnsons. They're not the teams that's been in the Benson family down in New Orleans. What you're getting now is a lot of tech people. A lot of people made their billions in something else, buying up teams, and they're gonna treat the teams like commodities. The Rams, Kroenke, he made his money in real estate, and his wife is a Walton from the Walmart family. So that's where their billions come from. You see what he did? They were like F them picks. They're gonna do different things, and they're gonna just throw money and luxury tax. We're not worried about that. We're gonna build new stadiums. We're gonna do all these things with the money because you need $6 billion to buy a team. Jordan paid 180 million for his stake in the Hornets or something like that, and
Got like
walked away
5
with
million or something.
like 1.8 billion or something out of it.
Yeah.
So a lot of these teams are going to cost so much money that the people who are buying them aren't going to be traditional sports people. They're probably going to be smart people, obviously, to make that kind of money to buy a sports franchise. So they're not going to worry about. They're going to stack their team and pay whatever debt they can, because to them, if I can get NBA wise, I can get 41 home games with these faces on marquees that are selling out, then maybe I can get a couple of rounds of the playoffs, but I can definitely sell out and overprice these tickets for these 41 home games. Lakers tickets are probably so ridiculous. You could probably get a better viewing in a game, Milwaukee versus Indiana, than the Clippers versus the Lakers. But it's going to cost you probably 7 times more to see the Lakers Clippers versus Milwaukee Indiana. And I think that's going to be the driving force for these purchases and these teams and these coaches' contracts and things of that nature.
So what have you thought of the in-season tournament? See, I got it right on the first try that time.
The in-season tournament?
Yeah.
I got to see the end result. I got to see, does it do anything for the team that wins this tournament in Vegas? Does Orlando win it and go on like some kind of tear after the tournament? If that's like the thing, is that the catapult for a team like the Pacers or a team like Cavaliers or something like that? Because if it's just a thing that people just do and no one cares about it, I can't see it lasting for that long.
Yeah.
But if there's some value that comes out of it with results, like people just get it and they announce an MVP or they give these guys their bonuses and they're like, yo, that was dope. I want to win that every year. This feeling of winning, and I want to, then maybe. But until then, I got to get the result before I can really understand. Because really, right now, it's just basketball.
Yeah, the only thing I got out of it was these ugly ass courts hurt my eyes.
I like the courts. I
hate the courts, but I don't see any difference right now. Like I told you, maybe if they added something to the tournament, like, I know you don't like the Elam, scoring or whatever, but like if they just added something that makes it a little different than regular season basketball, because I don't really see, like, if I'm watching these games right now, Orlando and Atlanta, I don't see no difference between the game I'm watching tonight and the game that I watched the other night that was a part of the tournament.
Yeah. And that's why I said I need the results. I need the end result. I need that particular trophy hoisting game, that dynamic, that semifinal final matchup. Does that look different?
I wish a team wins it that don't make the playoffs. That's what I want.
That's what I'm saying. So if it becomes a situation where, like, we kind of identify a couple of teams that we thought weren't going to make the playoffs. So if it's like the Jazz and the Grizzlies are playing for this in-season tournament championship, it's like,
Detroit.
Detroit versus the Pelicans or something like that. It's
You
like,
know what I'm
come on,
saying? Yeah. Charlotte against, I don't know. But yeah, but I think I do think
Jordan Poole versus the Heat.
that it could have value if you are a team like, say, Houston. It could have some value there. You got the new coach with NBA Finals experience. You started the season 0-3. You've won your last 4. So now this is a chance for you to potentially, show your young guys, like, this is what you're capable of. Like, I believe in you guys. And now you have the proof that I
Yeah,
was,
but if Houston beats Detroit,
well, it don't matter. I mean, they still got to beat other teams to get to that point, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they still have to run through, like, Denver, maybe, or like, they still have to beat maybe Golden State or Sacramento or somebody like that to.
That's what I'm
get to
saying.
that
Like,
point.
I can't really project it because it seems a bit. I know it's organized, but it still feels a bit random and a little chaotic, and it doesn't flow. It's not like the World Cup. I know if I broke it down and watched every single piece, I was like, oh, this is this group, and if they
Right.
But like, I don't really, because in the Florida regular season, I'm more concerned with the fact that these teams are stacking themselves up and they're 3-5 after 8 games,
Right.
Stuff like that. So, after the results, or as we set up for the championship weekend in Vegas, then I think the attention will make more sense. Where we can just kind of look like, oh, let's check this out. Let's see who made it and see how they got there, and then see if it catapults team going forward. So
Right. So yeah, that's where like I am. Not necessarily waiting to the end result, but like I want to see. I guess once we get out of pool play, like once we get to the actual
if
semi or
it's dope,
quarterfinals.
if it's dope, I want it to work. Like if it like I said, if it comes off and it's like, yo, it's not a bad idea. It's not a
No, I want it.
bad
I want it to
idea
work because I like
I want it to
basketball, but
work.
you know
But
what
like
I
I
mean.
said, I felt the same way about the play-in. I was like, I didn't like the play-in until I got a year's worth of data,
Yeah.
and then I thought about it after that. But it took
The
that
play-in has
first
been
year
the play-in
for
has
me
been
to get it.
entertaining. The play-in has been entertaining. It's still not my thing. Like that game last year, we had the what was it? Minnesota and the Lakers.
Yeah,
Went
when
to
AD
overtime.
fouled
When
him for no
Yeah, I
reason.
was just about to say that. Yeah, that they went to overtime. It was exciting. OKC was exciting. To see in the play-in. For the first time and everything, like the young team. Let's see what they look like. In a, I guess, pressure
Miami
situation.
being in the play-in and then making it to the finals, I think.
Yeah, but I still don't like it because I mean I feel like if I remember correctly, without looking at the standings, Miami would have been in the playoffs anyway. So either way, they would have just been an 8 seed that made it to the finals.
Yeah, but
Like
it's different when
the
they're
play.
playing 8 seed.
No, it's not. Just like March Madness, right? They got the first 4, and
I don't like the first 4.
I don't like it either. But we had teams like VCU, win the first 4 game, go to the Final 4. We've seen things like that happen. Or I don't like when I don't like the first 4 just because they always put schools, the small schools that already won their conference in that game. Like
And
they
they put
earned
them they have them as 11 seeds and make them play in that game. It's like, what about the 11 seed Purdue that should have been,
yeah.
like one of these teams that should
So
have been better? And it was like, nah, we're gonna
yeah.
put
So
this
usually
11 seed Belmont in this play-in. It's like,
so so
how's that fair to
usually
them?
so usually it's usually the lowest 16 seeds. Usually there's a HBCU involved. You know what I mean? And they don't get a lot of them don't get their NCAA tournament moment. But then like when whoever wins the play-in games, they be like their first win in NCAA tournament in school history. Like that shit don't count. That don't count. That wasn't on Thursday, Friday. That don't count.
It counts for recruiting.
It counts for recruiting, but they also have the 12 seeds play. So, you'll usually get, I think one year we had UCLA against Indiana or something like
That's what
that.
I'm saying. Like the 12 seeds, like, yo, I should be in this regular group. Why am I in this outside group when it's already 12?
Well, because the 12s are the last teams in. That's why.
Then you
That's
shouldn't
why.
get in.
That's
You
why,
should do
because
64. 64. That's it. That's a nice number.
Yeah, because like you have your 64 teams, so you have your 31 automatic bids, and then your at larges. So the 12 seeds are just the last four at larges that got in. So that's why they're, earning their
Just
way into the bracket, whereas with these 16 seeds, it's usually these teams that won their conference. A lot of times they won the regular season and the conference tournament. And
and
then
it's
you're
like,
making
all
them
right,
play.
you play this game on Tuesday. Hope you
Yeah,
like
for
your
no
trip to
reason.
Kansas City. Yeah.
So yeah, but it is what it is, like it's basketball, so I'm gonna watch it even if I don't like it. Like it is what it is. Just like tonight, the NFL takes all of its loyal fans on Veterans Day weekend, spits in our face, and gives us Carolina and Chicago. Next week we get Baltimore and Cincinnati. That would have been nice to have this week, but I'll wait for next week. It'll be a great game,
Yeah.
but yeah, so like, the NBA is going on right now, Atlanta 82, Orlando 77. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed the show. We enjoyed bringing it to you.
Absolutely.
Happy Veterans Day out there to all
Go get
my
your free
people.
stuff.
Go get your free food,
Go get your free food.
not to be confused with Memorial Day, for those who aren't here anymore. We're going to salute the veterans that are still here. And,
Yep.
Thank you all for your service. And those of you that I have served with, thank you for your service too. And to our future airmen and everybody else,
Shout out Dawn 136, Spain Island Air Base.
shout out Disneyland at Lackland and Alcatraz. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out 320th. What is it?
You know what I'm saying?
320th trainee. I still know it.
You know
To
what I'm
my
saying?
heart.
I think
My
320th had
core.
they had the ice cream we used to sneak, when we would do the kitchen
Negative.
duty over
No
there.
ice cream. No ice cream.
They
They didn't
had the
give us
ice cream when I
anything.
was there.
Yeah, they didn't give us any. It was there. They're like, you go get some. I
Yeah,
wouldn't suggest getting up, try to get it though. I'm like,
nah,
hey, say less. That's all
I
you need
had
to
to do
hear.
it. I had to do it. You know what I'm
We
saying?
just see the McDonald's golden arches every morning doing PT.
But I felt so bad the other day. I was or like a couple weeks ago, I went to the Spurs game. I took my oldest boy to the Spurs game, and we were like walking downtown, and all the airmen in their blues, like it was so like I was like, oh man, why they still got these dudes talking about
Yeah,
OPSEC and blend in with the community, and people are spying on you, and you got these dudes
man.
walking down the street looking like Smurfs.
Ain't nobody spying on you in San Antonio. I did that trip downtown. You got to be in your blues, go to the mall.
Yo,
Sweating in July in San Antonio. I did it one time. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. This
so you
is worse.
ready?
It was so hot.
You ready for my first world problems?
All right.
So I was in basic training. I started in October, ended in December. And during our time in basic training, they took us to a Spurs game. So of course,
In basic,
yeah, they took us to a Spurs game. It was like Thanksgiving or something. And around Thanksgiving, they took us to the Spurs game, and they played against Dallas. They had this young dude named Dirk Nowitzki, who knew that he was going to become what he became. And I was so upset because if we would have went to the game 2 days later, Kobe and Shaq. First world
yeah.
problems.
So this is what I got in basic training. I got a bunk bed. I got my 2 phone calls. That was it. I didn't get a single perk. I think
I
one
think
time
the Spurs thing is a regular thing that they do.
I didn't get anything. We didn't get on a bus.
What month did you go through?
I went May through June. I got there May 17th, 3:00 in the morning, put them down, pick them up, graduated June 30th. And then I was there for tech school. They didn't hand out any tickets when I was in tech school either. But they didn't hand out a lot of heat because it was hot.
Oh, yeah.
I've been to Iraq. I've been to Al-Udeid. I've been to UAE. That San Antonio heat in
It's just different.
May, June, July.
It's different.
It hits different.
I thought I was ready for it, because I lived in Arizona for a while, and, whole different ball game.
Oh, yeah.
Vegas is hot too, but
and then the Jackrabbits. Yeah, it was a different kind of heat. Like we were doing our PT at 4:00 in the morning, but They had us marching around. I had burns on my hands from doing push-ups on the tar mat on the parade grounds. We were doing push-ups because we couldn't get it together.
Yeah.
I remember those days, man. So shout out all the veterans. I know everybody has their stories. Everybody has their basic training stories. The guy who sucked, the guy that was great. This scandal, that scandal, what rule you got away with. We all have them when we sit around. You sit around with enough military people, man, you hear some of the greatest stories in the history of your existence. You think Martin Scorsese writes great movies? Sit around with like two vets. Give me a 1975 basic training vet, man. They tell you the greatest stories. Like I had some of my supervisors with some old heads. Like I got my first base in 2001. So these guys came in 73, 71. I had a a supervisor ready to retire. He was like, man, we would smoke weed and get an LLC. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, we would just get a little paper. My dad was like, yeah, that happened all the time. He was like, if you had it in your hand when the drill sergeant came around, you just had to eat it.
Now they
So
try to end your life.
if we pass, he's like, if you're passing around and somebody was coming and you had it in your hand, you couldn't throw it on the ground.
Now they try to end your life and be like, you ain't getting no job. You know what I'm saying?
I was ruining you. He was like, man, we just put the J in your mouth and eat it and swallow it. That's the sacrifice you had to make to be part of the circle. You want to be in a cipher, you might have to hot potato this joint down.
All right. Yeah. On that note,
shout out to all the veterans.
America. We'll be back next week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your football. God bless. Happy Veterans Day. Peace.